plate shattered before it hit the floor. Maria hadn't thrown it on purpose. Her hands trembled too much. Her throat ached from holding back words that burned. And the kitchen felt too small for the storm building inside her chest. The crash echoed against the walls, sharp enough to make the baby cry in the next room. Tomas slammed his fist on the table, making the forks jump. His voice was heavy with whiskey. Enough! Every night, Maria. Every night you start again, because you don't listen. Maria's voice cracked, her cheeks wet. Her hair clung to her face in damp strands. Do you even see your children anymore? Your son looks at me and asks where you are when you're sitting right here. He asks why his father is always angry. You should be the one angry, Tomas. Angry at yourself for coming home smelling like lies. The words sliced the air. In the hallway, Daniel froze. At 10 years old, he already knew how to stand perfectly still, invisible when the storm came. He clutched the wooden frame of the door, too scared to move, but too unwilling to turn away. His little sister, Elena, wailed in her crib, but no one rushed to comfort her. The house shook with voices, but no arms lifted the child. That night, Daniel decided the house was no longer a home. The fights grew worse. Sometimes they started with slammed doors, other times with silence so sharp you could hear it breaking. Maria worked double shifts at the diner, her eyes hollow from tears she didn't have time to shed. Tomas had lost his factory job, and instead of searching for work, he found the bottom of a bottle. Once, Daniel caught his father sitting on the porch steps, staring at nothing, muttering about the house by the river he once promised Maria. That dream was gone now, buried beneath cheap liquor and unpaid bills. By 12, Daniel could rock Elena back to sleep faster than Maria could. By 13, he memorized which streets to take to avoid the liquor store where Tomas begged for credit. By 14, he stopped asking anyone for help. Still, blood doesn't loosen easily. One winter night, the pipes groaned like tired men. Maria collapsed at work. They said her heart was weak, her body worn thin from years of carrying more than it should. Daniel sat by her hospital bed, clutching her hand, while Elena colored clumsy shapes in a children's book in the waiting room. Maria whispered through pale lips, "Promise me, don't become like him. Whatever happens, promise me." That Daniel nodded, though he wasn't sure promises could survive the weight of real life. Maria never came home. After the funeral, Thomas tried. God, he tried. For a handful of weeks, he shaved, wore clean shirts, even packed lunches for the kids. He almost looked like the man Maria had once fallen for. But grief is a thief. It takes what's left and sells it back for pain. The bottle returned, heavier, meaner. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. Elena left her homework on the kitchen table, and Daniel sat upstairs pretending to study, though every sound in the house kept him on edge. Tomas stumbled in, muttering about money, shouting about ghosts only he could see. When he grabbed Elena's arm too tightly, she cried out, "Leave her alone." Daniel's voice cracked, louder than it had ever been. Thomas turned, his eyes bloodshot. "Don't you tell me what to do in my house." But Daniel didn't feel like a child anymore. Fury filled his fists, and he pushed his father back. For the first time, Thomas looked startled, as if realizing his son wasn't a boy to cower anymore, but a young man ready to protect what was left of his family. That night, Daniel packed a bag. He took Elena's trembling hand, and together, they walked into the cold. Behind them, the kitchen light flickered across the empty chair at the table. A chair that had once been Maria's, now waiting for someone who would never sit in it again. The years ahead were not kind. Daniel worked jobs too old for his age, sweeping floors, stacking shelves, lying about being 16 when he was barely 15. Every dollar went toward keeping Elena clothed, fed, and safe. They lived in shelters, rented rooms, and once in a church basement where the priest slipped extra bread into their hands. Elena grew quiet. She rarely laughed, but when she did, Daniel felt like the world hadn't ended after all. She drew pictures of houses, always with smoke curling from chimneys and smiling families in the windows, drawings of a life they had lost. When Daniel turned 20 and Elena 15, news reached them. Tomas had been found in an alley, bottle still in hand. The coroner called it an accident. Daniel called it the ending his father had written for himself years ago. He didn't go to the funeral. Couldn't. But late at night, when the city finally fell silent, Daniel saw it in his mind. The empty chair. The one that had sat at the kitchen table all those years ago. He heard Maria's voice, asking for a promise. He felt the crack in his knuckles from the night he fought back. And he wondered, are families meant to love each other? Or are they built to break each other slowly, until there's nothing left but silence and ghosts? Some chairs are always empty. Some promises are heavier than blood. And sometimes survival means breaking away from the very people meant to protect you. Thank you for listening to this story on Hidden Chapters, where every tale carries a wound, and every wound carries a truth. If this story touched you, please give it a like and subscribe so you never miss the next hidden chapter.